Hello, and welcome to Talk the Thrones. We are here to break down the season finale of the second season of House of the Dragon. I'm Chris Ryan. This is Ringer Senior Staff Writer Joanna Robinson, and joining us, as always, the person in charge of hosing down Triarchy mud wrestlers.
Oh boy.
It's Mallory Rubin.
Chris, it does not befit a prince to pout.
Oh yeah, well here we are at the end of a long 2 months. We've been through so much, dragon fights, illness on the team, but we're back live in the studio. Yeah. We are here on YouTube on the Ringerverse YouTube channel, and I just want to say, if you're watching us on YouTube live, you can ask questions in the chat. Jomi will throw them in here. We'll try to get to some while we're talking about the episode. Let's start really broad strokes with this episode, the 8th episode of the season.
Yeah.
Usually we are used to 10 episodes about Game of Thrones seasons. House of the Dragon first season was 10, 9, 10. Did this feel like a finale? Was this a satisfying finale to you, Joe?
I think the way it ends, like the montage at the end and the score and all of that does feel very like final and energizing. But I think in general, it feels like an episode 8 of a 10-episode season. Like, I want those 2 more episodes.
Yeah.
And maybe that's just me being greedy and just wanting more.
There was the last 15 yards to go, you know?
Won't be the last time football comes up today, I don't think. Yeah, I agree. I thought this was an enjoyable and good episode of House of the Dragon.
Yeah.
But as a finale, I think it was quite subdued. And while like a finale that is more muted than the penultimate episode, say, is not exactly new in the Thronesverse. That's actually like something of a Thronesian tradition. It was, I think, hard not to feel like there was a 10-episode plan, and then we wound up with 8, and we couldn't get to time, money, whatever the case may be. We're just speculating. The 2 or 3 things that might have felt like the no-brainer conclusion points for the season.
Yeah.
And then what do you fill that space with that you have left? Thailand and the Triarchy and Rhaena running around looking for her dragon. I thought there were a lot of great character-rich scenes in this episode, but that until the montage, we were like looking for that finale feeling a bit. That said, heading into season 3, I think we're in like bangers only territory.
Yeah, we're a year away from
in terms of what's left. But we are 2 years away from that.
On the one hand, yes, I agree. On the other hand, I feel like that's what we were telling people about season 1 is we're like, this is all set up and wait till we get to season 2 and it's just going to be all killer, no filler, you know? So.
Good season of TV.
Good season of TV.
I will say that I think it was like the best of this show, and sometimes not the worst, that's a little bit unkind, but like I think some of the flaws of the show were on display in this one, where thematically, in terms of the dialogue, in terms of like some of the inter-character scenes, awesome. You know, like really good stuff, really like things I'll remember. If you end a season of TV and you want to get that feeling like now everything has changed, I think you're asking probably, especially the more casual viewers, to be like really counting on the dragon seed sowing stuff and to be like a much more significant thing than maybe it feels like just yet, because we haven't seen them in action. So you're just like, okay, like, next year.
I will not let you diminish the red sewing.
No, I mean, I agree with
in
that.
hindsight.
I do think it's interesting, before the season started, Ryan Condal's like, we're basically doing 2 battles.
Yeah.
And we got Rook's Rest, definitely a battle, and then I guess they're counting the red sewing as a battle. And certainly on like a budgetary level,
a
lot of dead
or
bodies.
like dead body level, that is a battle. But I think that primed a lot of us to think like, oh, we were gonna get 1 more battle this season.
Yeah, and if I can just nitpick a little bit, just a little bit, it's just that you can feel all of the gathering armies like right on the doorstep of the thing that we wanted to see. So like they're in the water, they're in their boats, they're on their way.
That's the montage. Yeah.
I think it's a completely valid critique, and I won't be surprised if a chunk, however large, we'll see if the fandom feels that like if you spend a lot of your season positioning different forces to converge on a given location, and then that doesn't happen inside of like 8 episodes that are 60 to 70 minutes is not like no room to make a big season of TV, right? So yeah, I think there will be oh wow, we didn't get like a grand set piece in the finale sensation, at least among some fans, but we have a lot to talk about, so we're
I think there are at least 2 scenes in this episode that are among the best that like not only House of Dragon but like Thrones has ever been.
Oh wow.
I do. And then also, I mean, perhaps there are people sitting at home just being like, Daenerys Targaryen was in this episode.
Yeah.
So that's a big enough deal, you know?
I think that actually dovetails really well into, obviously like a very big theme of this episode was the idea of these characters being aware that they are part of a larger story.
Yes.
Right? And that, you know, to some extent it's about free will, to some extent it's this idea of a tradition not only in the past, but this projection into the future that like they're just a cog in the wheel, if you will, a spoke in the wheel.
Wow.
You're gonna break that wheel?
Well, someone will eventually, but she's only in dream sequences just now. The connective tissue to Game of Thrones, the Mothership series, is very strong now as we see at least Daenerys Targaryen's back, the Night's King, and the Three-Eyed Raven in Daemon's vision. But what did you make of like it's really Daemon's revelation, but I think a lot of the characters in this episode were like I thought I had a lot of control over this situation, and it turns up I'm just swept up by fate.
I think that's a really interesting way to put it. And I like, in our notes here, you put story with a capital S, which I like really felt, and it made me, of course, think of Tyrion and Bran for better or for worse. Yeah. But I also think it's beyond that, like, we're all part of a story. It's this thing that we've been talking about since Rook's Rest of like having your entire worldview shaken.
Yeah.
Because like Wayne and Criston are sort of overtly doing that in this episode. Criston talking about like, I had this sword and this is all I knew and this is all I understood. But Alicent says something similar.
As he deeply inhales a handkerchief.
Yeah, exactly. He like sniffs.
Scent of a woman.
Yeah, exactly. But like, I think that like, Rhaenyra, when she saw Adam on Sea Smoke, or Daemon when he has this vision in this episode, I think everyone here is like, I thought I understood the order of the world.
Yes.
Aemond Targaryen is like, I thought as soon as I claimed Vhagar, I was absolutely like immune to any attack, and now I'm outnumbered by other dragons. I no longer have that. Aegon's like, I thought I would have my penis for my entire life, but it turns out I don't. So
like a sausage on a spit, folks.
Like worldviews are being rocked all over the place, and so I think that's a really interesting. Like, what's not only I'm in a story, but I'm not in the story I thought I was, or I'm not the character that I thought it was.
I kind of thought that really came to light in this Alicent and Rhaenyra scene. We get the second meeting with them this season, both of which are not in books. Like these are show inventions. But this was a scene where Alicent comes to Rhaenyra as a person and not a character, and she's kind of like, "All right, I was wrong. If you want, I can basically like hand you the keys to the kingdom." Rhaenyra asks for Aegon's head, essentially. And Alicent's like,
outright,
you can't ask me to do that, but then eventually acquiesces. But crucially, in this scene, she's like, me and Helaena are gonna get out of town. And it's just like, you should come with us, right?
She pulls a Criston.
Yeah.
She invites Rhaenyra to just flee and escape. And Rhaenyra says, once again, my part is here.
Yeah.
And so I think like to build off what you guys were just talking about and how the different characters are, like one of the things I'm most interested in tracking in this episode and now coming out of this episode, you mentioned free will. How do we assess the role of free will in a story where characters are increasingly confronting a prophecy about their fate, but also we as viewers know a certain endpoint in the future? I think this is going to be a fascinating thing to discuss and parse. Which characters respond to some new perspective with like the Criston nihilism? I have lost my bearings completely on what my place in the world is, to the point where I don't think I have one anymore. Who can maybe say, like Alicent, my purpose, for the first time ever, I'm gonna ask what I want. I'm gonna ask Helaena, what do you want? Something that Alicent's father never asked her, right? And maybe the thing you want is to escape it all, to not play a part in shaping the realm and in shaping events.
To get out of the story.
Exactly. Yeah. And so like a character like Daemon, it's fascinating. We'll obviously talk about the vision in more detail when we get to that scene, but like it's fascinating to me that we talked a lot throughout the season about the characters who confront prophecy in the story, the characters maybe who confront specifically the Prince that was promised, the Song of Ice and Fire. For so many of them, it's like this justification for some foul deed. It's inciting, right? It's fuel on the fire. For Daemon to emerge now as a character, we're learning this, getting this like larger perspective in the sense of the wider board, has a quelling and dampening effect on his impulses is such an interesting counterweight. Which characters think they actually can still shape the future? The future of the realm, the future of their own lives. Like the list is small coming out of this episode, and so it makes a character like Rhaenyra, who has a sense of like, my father told me that I was the one. I am ordained. We talked about this a lot last week. But to be then a rare person in the story who's like, I can maybe do something that matters and has a bearing on the outcome of our lives is fascinating. Yeah. So many people leave this episode like, what I do doesn't matter, or hearing that from someone else. Helaena flat out says to Aemond, you can do the thing you're threatening and it won't make a difference. That's a very destabilizing place for a lot of characters to find themselves in. So thematically, I find that very rich.
Yeah, it seems like, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, Massaria in Rhaenyra's ear,
Yeah.
saying the gods are blessing what you're doing, the gods have ordained what you're doing, is like really feeding into that difference in response.
It seems like the people who are most susceptible to that kind of way of thinking, Mal, about the idea that they can still control things, they are the ones with dragons. They are the ones like,
It helps. It helps,
it's like, I have
you
a
know?
dragon, so I don't have to be small folk anymore. I have a dragon, so
I can have as much quail as I want.
I can have as much quail as I want.
Got it.
You know, we're gonna go through this episode scene by scene. Some scenes we'll spend more time on than others.
The Triarchy scenes, right?
We're gonna spend about 45 minutes on this Triarchy scene. I think it's only right, since obviously the makers of this show thought it was worthy of opening the
Listen,
season finale with it.
You are reaping what you have sown.
I
because
sow
you
nothing.
Sat in
Love
this chair
the
No.
Triarchy.
and said multiple times that you missed the stepstones, you missed the crab feeder,
feeder.
you love the
No,
Triarchy.
I want Criston and Gwen playing blackjack for 4 hours, and then I want a
same.
dragon fight. Yeah. Okay. So we open up. We're with Tyland. He's negotiating with the Triarchy. We thought they were gone. They're not gone. He's promising them the stepstones.
Well, he's like, should I?
Stepstones is just a modest tax.
We fought a whole war over this
What
in
is the
season
stepstones?
1. That's where they were fighting in season 1, where Daemon and Caraxes and the crab feeder and all of that.
Adjacent to Dragonstone, adjacent to like, what's it like kind of near?
It's a chain of islands that's off of the continent. And basically, if the Triarchy, who are from Essos, if they get the stepstones and we're playing a game of Risk, they're just that much closer
Okay.
to being
Control
able
the
to
shipping lanes, control
Yeah.
the trade,
No, shipping lanes is
control the
a
tax.
good point now, because these pirates, they want to go legit. They
Well, I mean, we did have a very long Green Council conversation earlier in the season about never trusting the Triarchy. So do they want to go legit, Chris? I
don't know,
mean,
it seems like they want to get into tax collection.
I do want to shout out one of the men on the Triarchy's council here has the book accurate Dario Naharis
Love that.
blue beard and mustache. That was like a fun thing, I think.
yeah.
for book
I also
readers
really
who are, like-
enjoyed Tyland being like, I was just really set on a flagon of wine and a bath.
Yeah, he was like,
It's like wonderful.
So
stuff.
Tyland
shower.
is briefly offered the throne in this episode. Like, you could use this.
Well, you know,
whole
it's the
thing and-
Triarchy boast. Like, you're worried the Prince Regent is going to kill you for agreeing to this pact with us that you probably shouldn't be making. Great news. Once you have our armada behind you, you can take the Iron Throne for yourself if you want to. You know?
Yeah.
and we'll definitely let you have that, and it won't be an issue at all.
What did you think of the like Tywin, Timon, Tyrod? I think that Tyrod was
Are you asking
an
that because
Easter
I
egg.
didn't get Tyland's name right for like the first 6 times I tried
Just
to
like,
write it down?
yeah, there's the
you
your
feel
personal
represented
connection
by
to
this
getting the name
in the
wrong all the
episode?
time. But like, was that for George? You know, Tyrod Taylor.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Well, it's a late
Giants
breaking-
QB, now a Jets QB. Double George football action right there.
I just want to say that, do you think that Ryan Condal regrets killing the crab feeder in season 1?
No.
Okay, because he
I
could
don't.
have been
and I don't think anybody but you thinks
this
that. or has ever
Lowhard
thought to
character
ask.
who shows up, emerges, and mud wrestles
Yeah.
The
Ty.
crab feeder could never be.
The crab feeder can't mud wrestle with people because the crab feeder was riddled with grayscale.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot he had a couple of recurring issues there.
Yeah.
We move on out of Essos. We'll get back to Tyler because the show sure did. Aemond and Vhagar. I, as just like a guy watching TV,
Yeah.
I was like, what did he just burn?
Sharp point.
Yeah,
A place.
yeah. But I think am I supposed to know what that was necessarily?
It's a place in the Crownlands.
Okay, and why do you do that? Why do you gotta do that?
Well, Aemond and Vhagar burn sharp point because Aemond doesn't know how to, as Allison has pointed out, you know, the indignities of his youth, doesn't know how to channel his rage and his sense of like some sort of affront. We did hear Sharp Point mentioned in the 6th episode this season when Corrales said to Alan, like, we'll set course for Sharp Point. Lord Bar Eamon wants us to like pick up his nephew, teach him how to be a boatswain. But yeah, like
It's really not that important, though. Let's just be clear. It's not that. It's
Men
just
will do anything to avoid
yeah,
therapy.
sworn to Dragonstone, a connection to
Gotcha.
Team Black. He was like too afraid to go challenge Rhaenyra after the sewing, rightly. And so like, here's an easy, vulnerable
Yeah.
target. You can just burn a bunch of innocents.
the point is he had a hissy fit. Or a Nick fit, as you introduced me to that phrase earlier today, and just burn a bunch of people. We
It'd be
just
amazing if Aemon was just like drowning a camel light. Just like, God, I really need to chill out. Anyway, his
heard, like,
brother.
I wanted to ask you though. Later we see Alice Rivers wakes Daemon up later.
yeah, just sitting on his mattress.
Just sitting on his
hanging
bed.
out. Yeah.
She's crying, and I was wondering if she was crying because of this.
Oh, like
Sharp
she
point.
can
Yeah.
feel a great disturbance of
Yeah.
the force kind of thing.
Yeah. voices cried out. The edit, it's not like cut to her or anything like that. I didn't have a good reason
I think that
why she was crying. And she has this history of like, I care when people
I
are
hear the atrocities
screaming
in the wind.
and,
Yeah.
you know,
Here's my thing.
far off.
I'm highly skeptical of all people
skep?
Yeah, all people whispering in the ears of leaders in the show.
As it should be.
Mysaria, I think, is really gassing up Rhaenyra. Larys, we're gonna get to in a second right here. And what was the example you just brought up that I just messed up? Alice, like, what's her deal, right? So like, I don't know what any of these people's agendas are. They all seem to be having like ulterior motives to the like why they're kind of pumping up the people that
Game of Thrones, man.
It is Game of Thrones, and Larys is playing to win. He's got Aegon here laid up. R.I.P. his cock. God damn it.
Dynamite Larys and Aegon scene. This was great.
My new favorite duo.
Yeah.
Okay, let's
Genuinely.
talk it out.
So
So he's basically saying, here, Rhaenyra's got dragons. Aemon's gonna kill you. We have to book out of here.
We gotta go.
Aegon's like,
I've got a bunch of money in Bravos.
That's right.
Let's
Stash
go.
with the Iron Bank. You love the Triarchy. You love the Iron Bank. We know these things
That's
about
a
you.
high interest savings account. Right
Larys
there.
basically makes the Cersei season 7 finale pitch. Let the monsters kill each other.
Yeah.
Like, bide your time and wait.
But I think what's so interesting, to your point about, yes, we should mistrust Larys and Mysaria and Alice and what their ulterior motives are. But when Aegon's like, I'm a monster, forever a cripple, I feel like Larys genuinely was like, it genuinely pained him to, not because he felt bad for Aegon, but because he was just like, that's, you know, it's tough for him to hear. And I think also, Mallory,
It's all good. Mal's getting over a little bit of a cough.
This is a wrong
it's
point.
live. We're doing it live.
Trying to drink a lot of water to fend off the coughing fit.
I think you're just
Wrong
excited
pipe.
to talk about this guy's split sausage.
Like a sausage on a spit. My God.
Okay.
Well, but I think the thing we have to ask
Continue
about
with your beautiful point.
I'm so sorry. Yes, I was definitely making a beautiful point. I think the thing we have to ask about Larys is how much did he know and when did he know it? Which was a question we were asking last week as well. But he had this plan ready to go.
Yes.
And so, like, does he not tell Aemond about the red sewing? Like,
Yeah, right.
the question was, how bad of a spy
Because he was
master
supposed
is
to
he?
tell Aemon about Adam, or at
About
least was given
Adam,
that
or
information.
people were like, why did Larys not notice the parade of dragon seeds marching out of King's Landing, or Alinda running all over town in a non-subtle way? And the idea is like, perhaps he did, and he was like, it suits me for Aemon to be on the back foot, for the king to be in my pocket. And when he says, like, he describes Vhagar going to Dragonstone, being scared, Aemon being scared by seeing 3 dragons there and pulling back around. He says he fled in terror, so I hear. How did Larys know that?
I mean, that's the great thing. That's what I'm saying about, like, he's pumping Aegon full of this stuff. Larys wasn't there. Aemon was like, rightly, like, I can't win this fight. But I wouldn't describe him as like quaking in his boots about it. I think he was more just like, all right, Vhagar.
No, I mean, we get to the whole like Realm's Delight bit. We are definitely gassing Aegon up in a number of different ways, but I still think that like Larys, I think he has like people I think he has people all over the place, and he's just keeping the information close to his vest.
When Ironrod was telling Aemond about the boats, I was waiting for Aemond to be like, why has my Master of Whisperers not imparted any of this information to me? But yeah, the you're not alone part was like definitely the classic Larys blend of like genuine, something that felt really sincere there. Like the only point he doesn't challenge anything Aegon says there except that, right? Because it's like the gift that he can give Aegon that maybe he felt like no one gave to him. Like, I will be by your side.
Yeah.
And I thought it was so interesting that in this conversation, that part of it, Larys is basically Tyrion, as we continuing our discussion from the last couple pods, and then like Aegon is in the Bran, I'm still processing this new circumstance that I'm in, but also like the Jaime, right? Like, give me a good clean death any day position. And like characters like Tyrion and Larys have gotten to, they've built toward the like make it your weakness where like armor point. For Aegon, he's in the Bran, like I woke up and I'm saying to Robb, I'd rather be dead position. And so like all of these character comps are
like a sausage on a spit. What
That
am I
was
gonna do? I love those comps, and I would add one more, which is like when he's like, let's go to Bravos. and everyone will be so excited when you come back. This is what Daenerys' shitty brother Viserys, like that's what he believed. He was like, they've been waiting for us. They were gassing him up in Essos his whole life, and they were like, the people in King's Landing weep in the streets. Cannot wait for you to come back.
I loved the way too that Larys packaged that idea with they will hail the returning king his father's true heir. Like he knows to give Aegon the thing that he never had. Right? Like when Otto said, when Aegon said to Otto, like he made me king, and Otto laughed in his face and said, is that what you think? Right? Or in that like harrowing pre-Rook's Rest fight scene between Aegon and Alicent, right? The like in the hope that you might be half the king your father was. This was the thing he was always deprived of, like feeling like he was actually Viserys' chosen heir. And so for Larys to give him that delusion in the form of belief and affirmation, Larys is such a deft maneuverer.
That's very sweet. This is also a guy who's half burned to death, whose hog doesn't work anymore, and he's really bummed out about it. And that's the thing I love about this performance is that he doesn't have like a regarding Henry moment where he's like, I'm a good guy now. Actually, I've seen death, and like I'm really like maybe I could.
A great movie.
I mean, the look in his eye. Like we talk about regarding Henry like fairly regularly. Actually, the look in his eye when he says "Realm's Delight" after Larys has gone through the different monikers. Of course, this like takes us back to the first episode of the season with Aegon and his bros like hanging around the Iron Throne. Should it be Aegon the Magnanimous? No one knows what magnanimous means. Dragon Cock. We're gonna have to retire that one, right? Dragon Heart, Aegon the Generous, and like what is the thing that he wants? It's Realm's Delight because that was what the realm gave to Rhaenyra. Like again, the idea of being not only accepted but beloved. Like Aegon has never felt that, so of course it's what he covets.
And that's very much a book idea that has been like somewhat absent from the show, but I thought it was interesting that they brought back Realm's Delight for Aegon here.
The next scene, first of all, I just want to ask really quick, was Realm's Delight your favorite nickname? I like Peacemaker, you know, because that's what I think of when I think of Aegon, it's just diplomacy. Did you have a favorite nickname?
If I were him, I would just stick with Dragon Cock.
Yeah, sure.
No one needs to know.
Our little secret.
Yeah.
The next scene is just Rhaena running around. We'll get back to that.
If you're gonna bail on your agreement with Rhaenyra to protect little Aegon and little Viserys, and
I think it's actually worth
the dragon,
diagramming what's happening here.
You need to go back.
So,
like no water, the way that
because this was a scene that's actually
not a single granola bar.
There's a conversation between her and Jane of Aaron of the Vale.
Yeah.
Jane's like, you can stay here if you'd like as my ward, right? Doesn't she offer that or no? No, she doesn't.
I don't think so, because Rhaena's whole job was to make sure that
Watch
kids
those
were safe.
Okay, so she gets outside the doors, she waits for the doors to close, the people are walking, they apparently aren't like, hey, Rhaena, and she runs off.
Shit about Rhaena is the point.
It may be a little confusing, as it was to me as I was watching this episode, just like, I knew she was looking for a dragon, but I didn't understand like the levels of distress she was in, because she's obviously like, if this doesn't work out, I'm actually probably gonna die of hunger, right?
She's out alone in the
her like
Vale,
boots are like
exposed.
split.
Yeah.
We don't know how long, and there's a lot of weird
Shivering at night.
timeline language in this episode. Like, you know, we sail in 2 days' time, or all this sort of stuff like that. Like a lot of weird timekeeping in this episode. How long was Rhaena out there? Feels like a really long time.
Very thirsty, very cold at night.
She runs around for most of this episode. Jason Ulf is the next one.
This is an incredible scene.
I actually LOL'd at this.
This was great.
Tom Bennett is the king.
Okay.
This
This
is wonderful.
incredible.
This was very funny.
Yeah.
Do you see this slight character pivot of a guy who really wanted something more for himself, but was a little bit full of ale and, you know, like in Ulf at the pub trying to like basically tell stories for pints. He kind of slips into being a dick pretty fast once he gets this.
I mean, this is one of those spaces where I would love 2 more episodes for, you know, for this turn to happen. Like this turn was definitely going to happen for him. This is like definitely what he was.
This guy to be like, I'm really interested in Rhaenyra.
But this is what he was like poised for. Like his character type was poised for, but it happened very immediately, which, you know, a dragon's a heady drug, I guess. But the fact that we walk in and he's got his feet on the painted table.
You keep that face clear for Stannis and Melisandre to fuck on. Some respect.
Some respect, please. But like his feet are literally sitting on the continent.
Yeah.
The map. Like that's, you know, it's just wonderful stuff. And Hugh Hammer then being sort of cast in this role of like, I'm the good
I understand
one, I'm
etiquette.
not like him, you know.
Yeah, I've made an appeal to the king.
He's never been
I've made scorpions for the crown.
A character who definitely had a name. She didn't.
I just love so much. Like you've got like the comedy, the manners, all of that. Ulf being a character previously who was like happy to talk about Jace in the pub, right?
yeah.
His connection, then doesn't recognize him, doesn't know who he is. The absolute fucking gall if you're Jace. Not only of the hug, the way he was like pushing his arm away was just so funny. But okay, what did the entire emotional pitch that he made to Rhaenyra hinge on? I don't want people to like think I'm just like them or that they're just like me. Like, I don't want to do Team Bastard. And then Ulf like literally saying you and I cut from the same cloth, talking about their
Look
hair.
at that hair.
This is
Dark as they
Jace's
say.
nightmare coming to bear in front of him in real time, and it took like a day.
But what I love
So good.
is that Bale is like snapped the fuck out of it. You know
The
what I
Baelish
mean?
scene was amazing.
But when he says, "Look at that hair, as dark as they say," what's interesting to me is that Jace has a haircut before this episode is over, and it's not like he can get rid of all of his hair. But he, we loved the curls, but he was looking a lot like his bio dad, Harwin
yeah.
Strong.
Yes.
So I feel like he like trimmed the
Why
curls
doesn't
up a
Jace
bit.
just
to be
go
like,
Joe Burrow style, Targaryen it up top? You know what I mean?
question. Right.
I have one other question for you about Jace. This is actually real like armchair therapy or whatever. But do you think that one of the dangers of
He
bringing
said therapy. I got so excited.
one of the dangers of bringing all these like lowborn quote unquote people into the palace is the people in the palace are really fucking weird, and like this teenager being like third in command is kind of odd to people who are like, I work for a living and like I had to like scrounge for food. Now I get in here and find out the reason all of this is happening is because the brother and sister who are married have like a kid who's not their kid. And
no, honestly, my honest answer is
you
no.
think that the
'cause
people
I
who
think
are
that's-
small folk are like, these guys have it all figured out?
No, not necessarily have it all figured out, but I just think they're used to it. Like, Jaehaerys was a teen when he took over, right? Like, I think this is the way of life in Westeros, that you have boy kings and precocious princes. And I think for a character like Ulf, just being in the presence of somebody famous is the only thing that matters. I don't think he's like, you seem quite young and like,
Yeah.
what's going on in this castle? He was just like, my
That's
bro,
so
my
different.
dude, Jace, my guy.
Let's go to Corlys and Rhaenyra at the docks.
Okay.
Okay, so we get Rhaenyra's common refrain of using the dragons as deterrents.
Yes.
That the dragons are just there to scare everybody into giving her her birthright. I thought it was very important, even though this has now been like hammered home by her all season long, getting this one last
I really agree.
utterance of this stuff before
Especially after the sewing.
we get to the end of the episode where she's just like, safety's off.
Totally.
I thought it was awesome.
I also loved, to that idea of Corlys and his shifting worldview, the idea that he's renamed his ship
After
his
his
name
widow,
for him, named it for Rhaenys, but also just sort of like, in terms of that, like, what story am I in or what character am I in the story? Like, he was the main character of his own story.
Yeah.
He sailed the seas, all this sort of stuff like that. I had all these
Spin-off show.
the whole night I might get a prequel show, blah,
Waiting
blah.
for a spin-off.
And he's like, that was the old me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The new Corlys is way different. Wait till I talk to Alan. It's going to be great.
I liked too, because like Bela had kind of voiced that idea to him, right? Bela was ready to give Jace the stop pouting pep talk because she'd already given it to Corlys in the 5th episode. And like when
Let my girl
Bela
rest.
said, I wonder if any of them knew it was all for her, it was tapping into this like deeply personal, private thing. And for Corlys to put that then at the fore instead of the obsession with legacy and kind of move that back, or think of what is your legacy maybe in a different way. It's about the people you love. It's about the people around you. I thought was very effective. I also thought it was interesting that he was like, in essence, giving Rhaenyra the Olenna to Dany, like, you're a dragon.
Be a dragon.
Be a dragon.
Yeah, right.
Speech, doing the dragon math, telling her not to wait. It's been fascinating to track across the season, like the idea of speed and haste and how many different characters have really been pressing the urgency of the moment, and then when other characters are like hitting pause to think about the big picture and the time that they have. Well, I agree with you, Chris, that it was like, it felt super important because we were like so alarmed, right? This slaughter, this ritual sacrifice, we talked about that term that Condell used, like, that we watched last week. And so for Rhaenyra to come out of that, we'll build toward like the dragon seed dinner and the like, we need to go to Old Town, we need to go to Lannisport, here are all the armies that we need to annihilate. Well, we build toward that in fairly like short order here, but it felt crucial to have one more moment, especially before the Alicent and Rhaenyra scene where like their positions are inverted. Rhaenyra is the one on the receiving end of like, are we sure it's too late for peace? And we needed to hear one more time like, are we sure that we can't just get the Greens to hand this over and avoid war?
Corrales also does some like very valuable that dragon math that we are constantly doing.
Well, exposition.
He's like, Dreamfire.
Dreamfire.
She exists. Helaena has a dragon. Guess you guys didn't know about that, but it's true.
As I've told you too, that I've started getting served Thrones clips a lot on YouTube. And I think presciently got served two that were really useful for this episode. I can't remember where. I think it's in season 7. First, it's Dany's gonna burn Rickon and who's the other guy on the battlefield, and they're like, I have a queen, I have a queen already. And Tyrion's like, all you have to do is show them that you might burn them. You know, like he's trying to be like, you just have to use the threat of dragons, and she's like, basically like, nah, these guys are going down. And then later, like I think around the time when the Whites show up or when they show Cersei like the White Walker or whatever, she's talking about like her bringing dragons back into the world as this impossible, almost like godly act. And you can see this arc of like, okay, I understand I have like one hand tied behind my back, even though I have a dragon because I can't go too far with this, to I'm a god, you know what I mean? And that happens to Rhaenyra within one episode here in some ways. Like you get to the end of this episode and she's like, it turns out I've run out of diplomacy. And in some ways you gotta wonder whether as a character it's because she's just like bored. You know what I mean? Like she's kind of trapped in this castle. She's not allowed to expose herself because she would then ruin the entire claim on the crown.
Is that you projecting because you were bored when Rhaenyra was just stuck in the castle and not burning people with dragons?
I think I'm interested in is the speed in which characters develop on this show, despite the show itself narrative-wise moving slowly.
We were like talking on the episode 7 House of R deep dive, like going back to the 4th episode to the eve of Rook's Rest and how Rhaenyra was finally sharing Aegon's dream with Jace and how she was using that language then, ordained, like I'm the chosen one, right? It has been there, so it was more like reaching the fever pitch, but I think not to jump ahead, but the other thing, in addition to what she voices to Corlys here that felt really crucial to me in this episode is like this balance, this counterbalance in what we're seeing with Rhaenyra, was saying to Mysaria, I don't think this is what my father would have wanted. Right? Because we talked about that a lot last week too. Like, perhaps you're not current on the 4 hours of a subsequent discussion of the episode we did.
Listen, I'm gonna give you so much credit. You were watching your Game of Thrones YouTube clips, and I love that about you.
But like we were talking about this idea,
like Liverpool highlights, Game of Thrones clips.
You'll catch up. You know, the pod is there waiting for you. Like,
did Rhaenyra? I think it was.
Did Rhaenyra forget? We talk a lot about what Rhaenyra has inherited from Viserys, but like, have they forgotten that core series opening note? Like the idea that we control dragons is an illusion. They're a power men never should have trifled with. It brought Valyria its doom. Like, if we don't mind our histories, it will do the same to us.
The thing that I love about Mallory is she will say that every single episode so that we don't forget. But I think if you're Rhaenyra and Vermithor came when you beckoned.
Exactly.
That and didn't eat you or roast you, then you're like, my dad said what? Or maybe my dad was wrong.
Yeah, let's be honest. Rhaenyra didn't walk out of the Red Sowing traumatized at the loss of life.
No.
She was like, clutch, we got a couple more dragons.
Absolutely.
Let's keep moving and let's talk about Dame, who's at Harrenhal still.
Yep.
But this time, actually, GTD, he's getting things done.
Yeah.
Broom arrives, a rich donor.
Oh, you're skipping the conversation between Daemon and Piper about the pigs for Caraxes? That was great. Just a great laugh. Honestly great. Daemon making his way through the hallway, like, let me check your sword. And then
he prefers it.
Like,
I like how Daemon has essentially been robo-tripping the entire time he's been here, and then all of a sudden is like the expert on everything. He's like, good sword, move that water over there. I'm totally on it. But is there any reason, like, do we need to pause on pork the other way?
No, I honestly just thought it was a great little moment.
We get a rich donor who wants to replace his candidate.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Political. Say like Brat Prince Summer.
Yeah, Brat Prince Summer. I don't know. I just thought it was interesting. You get the gender piece, of course. We need a strong man leader here.
Yeah, we need a king. Alfred just basically repeating what he said directly to Rhaenyra.
There's just like a few instances in this.
Though.
Yeah. No, that was Celtigar. Maybe Broom should get slapped. He's very tall though. It's like Matt Smith is a tall man, and Broom was like looming over Daemon. the moment in the courtyard where he's like, "What's that?" And then, Daemon says, "This place will have you barking at the moon." Great stuff. I did think some of the language here and elsewhere in this episode was just like a little too on the nose of like, there just wasn't a ton of subtlety here. But I guess like someone like Broom is not someone we would ever accuse of subtlety. But like, I don't know, there was just like a few
They
moments.
don't beat around the bush. Yeah.
Yeah. But, and like, Simon Strong sort of like lurking in the
Criston
shadows.
especially, it's like, tell me how you really feel, man. Like,
But I don't know if we were supposed to watch this scene and think the way that Simon does, oh, Daemon's definitely going to sign up for Broom's agenda.
Yeah.
Like if it's supposed to be a big twist at the end that Daemon is like, JK, I'm not going to.
Right.
if he doesn't have that vision, I don't know what we're talking about.
Well, I think that's a valid, I think he has the season of ghost therapy at Harrenhal to reach his grand conclusion.
Yeah.
But obviously, yes, this sequence with Alfred happens before that final bit of like, I see that I am not, in fact, as Alice said, the player. I am a piece, right? And I understand what kind of piece I am now. I did think it was interesting, though, that first of all, like we talk about the magic, what is happening, the supernatural element at Harrenhal. So just for Daemon to take him there, for Daemon who has had this experience and resisted it so actively until he says to Alice, like later, I'm not inclined to scoff at this anymore, actually. He made the choice of all the places in this giant, massive abode he could have taken him to go to right in front of the werewood tree. Like, it shows us that I think he has this connection now to the magic of the place. So I liked that part of it. The tree whispering traitor at Alfred was just fantastic. We talk about, like, the whispers of the tree. We've talked about Ocean Bran. Alice has, like, talked about this with Daemon. So that
Do you feel like that was George R. R. Martin himself since he is the face of that werewood tree?
Maybe.
What do you think the alternative settings for this conversation could have been, though? Because you think like he could have been like, hey, I hear a bunch of pigs are arriving.
I was going to say the pigsty.
That's
a menacing place to take someone.
Go to
I've seen
Alice's,
British
like,
gangster films. You don't want to go to the pigsty
Slayer.
with Daemon Targaryen.
I liked how proud Daemon looked too when Alfred arrived. Just the way he said interesting.
Yeah.
And he knows Rhaenyra's compelled to check up on him. And also he's like, what do you make of my giant fucking army? Like
Yeah.
he's got a little
Pretty
bit
good.
of swagger
Well,
before he has to kneel.
And this is something that, Emma Darcy was saying in interviews last week, this idea that Daemon and Rhaenyra are not able to be horny for each other when they are losing. It is only when they are winning
Interesting.
that they can like share victory for each other, and they love to like get horny for victory, but they cannot share
in the
sadness
times
with each
between,
other.
gotta dream about eating out your own mom.
Yeah, And so this
Horny
idea
for victory. I like it.
So like when we see Rhaenyra at the end of last week's episode and she's like, I just killed 43 people, but I got 2 big dragons.
But this is why, like,
horny for victory.
all of a sudden there's like dozens of babies in Philadelphia named Chase Utley. You know what I mean? Because people love when things are going right.
So I think when we see, not to skip ahead, when we see Rhaenyra and Daemon interact at the end of this episode, we talked about something that Condell said, I've been thinking about all season, this idea that this season is just like a referendum on their marriage. Well, we meet them and they're low at the beginning of the season. They cannot talk to each other. And then we meet them here and Damon's like, I got a huge army. And Rhaenyra's like, that's cool. I got 3 new dragon riders for us. And they're like
practically renewing their vows at the end.
A little like lean in, a little like almost head nuzzle.
Yes.
Can't wait to talk about that scene.
Aemon and Jasper, not a ton here.
we've hit that.
Aemon hates people.
Building on, let's close all the gates and lock them in by saying, let's stop the only food supply. Who needs fish?
Jasper's like, they
No more
literally
boats.
only have fish.
No more boats.
That's all they have left.
Like Aemon's trauma, I guess, with the eye and everything.
Yeah.
Like he's really taking it out on everybody.
Isn't that what Allison said?
Yeah.
The indignities of your youth, you know?
He's a dick. Anything else
working
about the
through it.
Aemon and Jasper scene though?
No, let's talk about Aemon and Allison and Helaena though.
Oh boy.
Yeah, this is ruled.
Chris,
Yeah.
are you familiar with the like pretty sizable contingent of Aemon Helaena shippers out in the readership? Because this was a tough episode for us.
Well,
Us?
us? This is brand new information to me.
Us, yeah.
Who is
that
this?
you?
No, it's her and some randos on the internet. It's not me. Helaemond is the name of the ship. Was it tough? Or when he was like, come with me to Harrenhal, did you feel your, I guess, Helaemond shipper heart pitter-patter a
You know,
little
her
bit?
rejection. I mean, obviously we have like then the second scene with just the 2 of them alone, but my goodness, brutal.
Yeah.
So you're not into the ship.
I didn't occur to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
it's been very
I don't
popular.
believe that, given how much time you spent thinking about incest in Game of Thrones.
No,
so.
I guess I was just more taken aback by the fact that Helaena was like, I'm going to bed, and it's clearly broad daylight outside. And she was like, I was just getting ready for bed. Do they go to bed like super early because there's no
I bet
electricity?
she
you think?
does. She's
Yeah.
like, my
She just
crickets are
also
dead.
Really
Yeah.
doesn't want
You
to talk
know?
to Aemon. Yeah.
I'm trying to think if
Tough
there's.
beat for Jace
Yeah.
that Aemon basically has the same stump speech. She's like, they've defiled our birthright, made commoners into dragon lords. That's not ideal. Not ideal for Jace there.
When Helaena says to Alicent, I was happier before I was queen.
Heartbreaking.
And Alicent really was like, same.
Yeah.
Hard same.
Yeah.
By the end of this episode, I mean, we'll talk about it a little bit more when we get there, but like, she's basically in season 1, episode 1, Alicent cosplay.
Yes.
But it was interesting because Helaena,
Showing the fingernails
when
again.
Alicent's like, let's get out of here, Helaena kind of blanks her because she doesn't know anything different than what she's living right now, really.
But is it also possibly, and again, I don't know this because I don't understand the full scope of Helena's, what she can see and what she
Sensitivity,
can't.
yeah.
But like, is it just because she literally can't see herself anywhere else? You know
Right,
what I
'cause
mean?
She's like, what's the point?
Again, I have some interesting questions about like the show's relationship to free will inside of a story where like visions and a sense of the future and this presentation of like predestination is so central. But I did think from Alicent's perspective, it was meaningful for her to ask her kid like, do you want to get out of here? Like, would that make you happier? Because again, that's not a thing that her family ever gave to her.
Alison's just trying to find one person who will go to Cabo.
I know,
Just one.
seriously. She's just like, girl trip, girl trip, girl
Sister
trip. no?
Rickard's like, actually, I can't go with you this time. I've got other things going on.
I have other entrails to smush. I cannot be bothered.
I also thought it was striking because Helena's like, I do not wish to fight. I won't burn anyone. You know, you're talking and observing rightly many times, like, what does it mean to have this power now?
Yeah.
And so to give us a character who's like, I have bonded with the dragon. I am a rider. Not just any dragon. I ride fucking Dreamfire.
Who is big time, like,
Dreamfire?
5-star recruit? What's going on?
Oh, yeah. I mean, so we don't really have time. We'll talk about this more in House of R. We don't have a ton of time now. I know we're running long already. But Dreamfire was Rhaena. Another Rhaena.
Gotcha.
Chris, they do all have the same names. Another Rhaena, Rhaena Targaryen's dragon, and was like, because of where Rhaena traveled, like all across the realm.
Dreamfire
and
fly
like,
to the wall and get scared?
Silverwing.
That's all right. All right, we can.
But you
skip
tried. You
House of
tried.
Art. We can go more into
tried,
dragons.
man.
I can't wait any longer. I need to get to my guys.
Gwen and Criston time.
Gwen and Criston.
Another dynamite scene with these
It was.
Guys.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Desire for women has brought me grief after grief. I LOL'd.
That's great stuff.
Just an awesome scene, completely over the top and ridiculous. I don't know why he's just full on sniffing
Yeah.
the queen's handkerchief.
Not just any
in front of the
handkerchief.
queen's brother.
This is like the titty cloth. Like, she pulled this out right. Remember when she gave it to him in the courtyard? Like, you can't do this in plain view of everyone, but also if you're Gawain, you can't then put
You said this earlier before the camera started rolling, and I was like, is she going to say it
yeah.
again?
Is titty cloth like a thing on Etsy, or are you just?
I don't
making
know.
this
We
up?
have our computers. Let's find out,
You-
man.
you
Let's
find
find
out.
out.
You
But
Google
like,
it.
if you're Gawain, you also can't put your sword to the Lord Commander.
And say you've been fucking the
Yeah,
queen.
you can't do that with like all the soldiers are behind them,
Yeah.
like watching and listening. Like we always talk about this, like guys, go to a private little grove of trees and have this exchange out of earshot of everyone. But like Criston the poet, Criston the nihilist, this was incredible.
True honor is a mist that melts in the morning, which is similar to something that Alicent said. But I just think that like his like, they look like strong hands, don't they? Like never ending story rock biter moment where he's just sort of like, here's my sword.
Yeah.
I always thought it meant something. This
Yeah.
is all I understood.
Yes.
But we've heard him say that before. My cloak, it's all I have, you know.
I'm really-
my
I'm
name, it's all I have.
Putting a little extra seasoning on this one, but the first thing I thought of while this guy is kicking his game about like we're just ashes, yada yada, is this like they're Siegfried Sassooning this dude. Like he's like this warrior poet who's seen incredible trauma. Siegfried Sassoon was like a World War I soldier who wrote very beautifully about like his experiences, and then they made him, Pat Barker wrote a novel about him, Regeneration. But that was actually what I was thinking of, because I was like, this guy who was not betraying this level of I don't know, poignant introspection before he saw all his guys get lit up. And now he's kind of like, whatever we're doing doesn't really matter because the dragons are going to decide this.
And here's, wait, can
Men
I
are,
have
the dragons dance and men are like
That's
dust
my
under their
camera.
feet.
I'm gonna look at it. I'm sorry, I was wrong. Massaria and Criston are interesting characters,
There you go.
and they really brought us back around.
Yes.
I think. now.
I just can't believe how invested I am in Criston at the end of the season. It's unbelievable. It's like what the show does and what a throne story does at its best is like wrap you up in, I mean, we have many examples of redemption arcs, so I don't know if that's what we're getting here, but like, okay, when Criston used to, like, because Gawain is like, don't you give a shit about your oath? And Kristin's like, it's literally all I think about and all I talk about and all I've talked about on the show to this point. You know, in the past, for Criston, this idea of like the fidelity, the honor, our response to that was like, why do you think you get to decide and then why do you get to be such a hypocrite? And now seeing his worldview turned on its ass where he thinks I have absolutely no ability to make an impact on the world I helped to usher in was so like, I thought more disturbing than the place we had previously found him in because that hopelessness, that sense of utter defeat, like he didn't find enlightenment.
He's just got nihilist.
On the other end, he just found a complete lack.
Well, he's just marching towards his death, whereas Alicent, who has a very
Die will be a
similar,
kind of relief.
don't you think? A little too ironic, yeah. Like Alicent has a very similar revelation. This world I helped build, I am completely locked out of any ability to shape it.
Yes.
Except she's like, girls trip, Cabo, let's go. And Kristen's like, die anyway, I guess. Yeah.
In the chat, Will Duncan said, is Criston redeemable after everything they did? I actually think that he's redeemable as a character through his candor. Like, I just think like the sort of how, you know, they're making him into this vessel for ideas about like marching into certain oblivion, which I think lots of soldiers must feel. And like, that's an interesting thing to play around with.
I love that point. And I think that like, when people would ask me, and whenever I would rail about how much I hated Criston Cole,
Those were the days.
why are you invested in Daemon Targaryen and you hate Criston Cole? And I would often say self-awareness. He lacks any self-awareness.
Yeah.
And so it just irritates me the way that he, you know, to paraphrase Rhaenyra later in this episode, sort of like cloaks himself in his self-righteousness. Yeah. And that bothered me so much. Daemon at least knew he was a piece of shit. You know what I mean? Like when he smirks about a murder that he did, he knows he did that murder. Whereas Kristen's like, I am the only thing that is honor that is left on this earth. And now that all of that has crumbled around him, he's fascinating to me.
Totally agree.
Wow, I bought it. I bought the dip and it paid off.
Yeah,
I did
for
it.
you.
Lexine was Lohar and Ty mud wrestling.
Correct. Yeah. it was.
I'll leave that
Indeed
for House of R. You guys can go deep on that one. That was fine, I guess. I just don't know
We'll
why.
come back to them in 2 seconds, so it's
Like,
fine.
I don't know why this was in the finale. Jace the Powder and Bela, just him going, I'm reading.
I'm reading.
This is just an amazing
Absolutely
team.
iconic.
Yeah.
This is so
He's
good.
never read in his life.
How dare you?
No, maybe he did, but like he wasn't reading then. He was just pouting, you know?
And Bela's like, I'm so tired of holding the hand of every single
All
pouting
these
person
sulky
around there.
bros.
Yeah.
I thought that Bela saying, that does not make me common, or you, was like one of the moments of the episode.
Yeah.
And I think that like, again, it's about balancing these ideas and holding multiple things in our head at once because Jace's, while he did not maybe voice it to Rhaenyra in the most productive fashion, right? And while a lot of that...
That's a soft pedal. That's a soft pedal of what he did.
While the greeting that he gives to Ulfenhue is not the most hospitable one, he was right when he said, just gonna chip away at this idea of Targaryen exceptionalism if we democratize dragon riding and let just like any old bastard claim a dragon. But I think Bela offering again like a counterweight, this is like an episode of counterweights, was crucial because it's like you don't have to feel diminished. Like people have made Jace feel that way his entire life. That is true. But at the end of the day, it's up to him whether he wants to go stand by Rhaenyra's side, go to the dinner with the dragon, which he does,
we could
sit there
we
at the
could
table,
do a little
right?
bit of Lohar and Thailand having a seafood tower. I only mentioned it because Lohar
You
is
also
like,
skipped Rhaena freezing in the Vale. You know, we go from
sorry.
Rhaena freezing
You know
in
what?
the
Honestly,
Vale
I
into
may have just like
singing.
not even written that down. Lohar and Thailand, they're having seafood. They talk about going to the gullet on the morrow. And
On the morrow. That's so soon. Here's my main critique of this entire episode. Tywin Lannister sings The Captain's Daughter, a new song to A Song of Ice and Fire canon, but where are the days of Game of Thrones when we would get like a banger rock version of this?
Yeah,
Where's the Chapel Roan, the captain's daughter, to close out this episode?
I don't know, but Lohar does have the special request to Thailand, which is, will you have sex with my wife? It's still funny. It's still funny.
Man. You're the best.
To me. Rhaenyra and the Dragon Riders.
Yes.
What a dinner.
Really something.
Ulf fucking loves quail. He really does. He loves eating small birds.
More wine here, more of those little birds.
He's been like eating broth and the occasional piece of fish.
And it was a thin broth, Chris.
It was a
as you
very
will recall.
thin broth.
As you will recall.
My guy needs iron.
We're talking about Dragon training camp here, basically. Rhaenyra lets everybody know they need to be up on their verbiage.
Yeah, in 2 days.
The playbook needs to be off. It's just all committed to memory.
I hope they've got the wristbands with all the plays right there, because that is just not enough time, Chris. It's just simply not enough time.
This scene is very useful. We've talked about some of the stuff I noted here, more or less like the turn Ulf makes from like lovable braggart to disruptive force within the palace.
Continuing to talk while the queen has stood up to make a toast is one of the most astonishing things we have witnessed in the history of the show.
Best make me a knight then. I mean, the problem is, the way I feel conflicted about this is that I do not believe in the monarchy. So like, on the one hand, I'm like, yeah, he's got a dragon as much as they do.
Smash
So
the
like,
crown. But at the other hand, it's like maybe just kill him and try and find another one.
Yeah.
You know, like,
maybe this isn't the guy.
I did enjoy him
This
saying
isn't the
like,
one.
Silverwing's a goer. And then I really loved Adam being like, we'll have time enough to see which of us is a coward. A lot of tension at that table.
Yes.
A lot of tension. Also the little look on Jace's face
When she takes Adam.
when Maester Jarvis comes in with the message from Simon, and Jace is like first he's ready to listen, right? No, you're not invited to listen. And then when Rhaenyra summons Adam and Jace is like, but do you think
I have questions about why she took Adam.
Yeah, do you think she actually is like, I mean, obviously she's trying to keep Jace safe still, but why not take Baela?
Baela on
Does she
Midnighter.
want Baela there to keep an eye on Jace
it's hard to.
with the seeds?
I mean, I think that there is something about Adam's introduction to Rhaenyra after she's that's the only guy who's kind of given her unconditional support and loyalty in a long time.
He was really trying.
He was-
Ulf is
he was
dragging
trying.
down
Yeah,
his
he was
reputation.
trying.
But and
Maybe
like
they just haven't had any one-on-one
Rhaenyra
time.
even says to Corrales like, oh, you can give me like a good report on Adam, right?
yeah,
And then he does, right?
Or
She
it's like,
feels
oh, yeah,
more-
that guy who,
best.
yeah, he's
But
fine.
like Sir Laurent having to reach
Yes.
for his fucking sword,
the Kingsguard reaching for the sword because Ulf was being
what Ulf is doing?
asshole.
Right.
But
Astonishing.
I have questions about why Adam and Seasmoke went to Harrenhal.
They do go to Harrenhal because she gets a message from Harrenhal and she flies out.
Yes.
Before she gets there, Daemon has another vision. As he's walking with Alice, she's like, "Do you want to see what all of these dream sequences were really about?"
But before we get to the dream,
Okay.
let's just like let Chris talk about this for a second. Did you see the person clip-clopping with antlers on their head behind the tree?
No.
Yeah, there's
Green
like
man.
like brief
A green man of the
So-
Isle of Faces.
So this
was huge.
No,
I'm
yeah,
gassed.
this is huge. So it happened really. It's like blink and you'll miss it. So I'm not upset that you
totally
miss
missed
it.
this, yeah.
But there's like right before he gets to the tree, and I'm sure Damon's like, I've seen so much at this point. I can't even. You hear clip clop, and you see a guy who's like, I guess since he's clipping and clopping is sort of satyr-like, but he's got these antlers. And in the God's Eye, which is the lake that's right there, there's an island in the middle called the Isle of Faces
Rhaenyra and Adam fly over it. You see it.
Okay.
Yeah. In
that
shot.
humans cannot get to. People cannot get to this island. And the people on the island, the guardians, are the green men. And what I love about the fact that we see this this is huge because we've never been there. Like, we
Incredible.
don't go there in the books. It's like you can't
Okay.
get to it.
It's like old Nan telling Bran stories, et cetera. et
It's
cetera.
like, okay.
No one visits the Isle of Faces. That's where the green men live. What I love about Bran, so Bran hears these stories from old Nan in the original books, and every time he's like going somewhere and someone mentions someone, he's like, "Did they have antlers? If they had antlers, that was a green man, and that's so sick, man." So anyway, it's a huge deal. We saw
Fantastic.
a green man.
Genuinely
So we see a green man.
electric.
Add that to my notes. Alice visits Daemon, takes him to the Godswood, and he touches the weirwood tree. And he has a vision, and I'm like, oh God, who's he gonna have sex with now? He gets the three-eyed raven. He sees some dead dragons.
He doesn't just get the three-eyed raven. He gets fucking Brendan Rivers' blood raven.
But that's the three-eyed raven that we've seen.
Yeah, but like the birthmark was there, Chris. 2 eyeballs still.
We've now seen 3 actors play that character.
Okay, it's Max von Sydow.
It's Mac von Sydow
Okay.
or the elderly bearded man who was in the visions before they cast Max von
And
Sydow.
then he
Blood
also
Raven.
sees some dead dragons and soldiers. We don't know what war that's from. Could be any number of them, I guess, right?
Mallory and I have some like House of Art theories that we'll talk about.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Daenerys birthing her dragons. She's got them on her shoulders and stuff. Rhaenyra on the throne.
White Walker and the Army of the Dead.
And then I thought kind of the most crucial part of this is Helaena is in the vision
Red Comet.
and also seems to know that she's in the vision.
This is wild. Not only that, but they got the set from Stranger Things when Eleven goes into the void space.
I thought that was pretty cool. It really does open up a Pandora's box of
Yeah.
how does Helaena know Alice? How is there a sort of realm
So
or
this is- yeah.
plane of existence that Helaena accesses where
This
she
is-
pops up in people's dreams?
I'm excited to see her like potentially dreamwalk. Like this is the thing about Helaena is that this is a huge show invention. That Helaena is like a dreamer in the first place. That she sees things and has visions. It's a huge expansion of the character and is one that George R. R. Martin has said actually they improved on my Helaena. Like often George R. R. Martin's like, don't change a thing. Don't like it when you do that. Causes a ripple effect. But he's like, the shit that they did with Helaena is really cool.
That's awesome.
That she's doing all this. So like, yes, on the one hand, it opens up a lot of really cool possibilities. But to your point, in terms of like a monkey's paw, like narratively, this could be sticky. But I think it works really well here. Maybe a little less so when she's talking to Aemond a little after. But her talking to Daemon here, I found really effective. I thought I didn't mind Daenerys being here. I thought that was cool. I thought it was a cool way to like, we're not getting Emilia Clarke, but we all know.
She was like, "What's up, Daemon? I can see you." Yeah.
Right. We all know who that is. The White Walker stuff, I was like a little less.
Well, you kind of need it for him to truly be like, "I get it. Now I know why you're the queen."
Zombies.
So he's basically seeing. Let me actually save that question because I want to ask if
For that
that's.
scene.
I mean, I basically want to
For the
know if
Rhaenyra
that's
Daemon
Aegon's dream, right, of the Song of Ice and Fire.
Yep.
Or some things different than that, but gives him the same cumulative effect that it has when Viserys passes the story on and Rhaenyra.
I would say it's the latter. I mean, to just answer your question, even though you said you might save it, I would say it's the latter just because of like Rhaenyra being part of it and also him being part of it. Him like walking through it and falling into the
it's
water.
like a more contextual to his life framing of the same end game, right?
That maybe
like
maybe
the end game
Aegon
at the
had
heart of Aegon's.
that there's something else we have to fight. And
The
Rhaenyra's
Song
gotta
of
be
Ice
the
and Fire
one
is there. It's the White Walkers. It's the rebirth of the dragons. Like that part of the dream is there. But yeah, this is framed around his circumstance and his life, so that Helaena can say it's all a story. You're but one part in it. You know your part. You know what you must do, and that he can then say
more important than story.
and what, as Tyrion once asked, is more important than story. But like, I'm curious to ask you both what you like, how you are feeling about these, because obviously the series opens with this, right? This number of years until Daenerys Targaryen, we get the dream. We're like, okay, show invention. We know how that all goes. We know how Game of Thrones ends. Like, when you see stuff like this, when you hear the vision cue and the score kick in, are you like, let's fucking go? These are the connections and these like bits of connective tissue that make this all feel like more of like, there's a reason they went with a tapestry for the opening credits now of the series, right? This idea that we are stitched into this great story. Are those things that like those connections that they felt inevitable as soon as they introduced the idea of Aegon's dream, certainly, but like, do you want more of them? Do you want to really limit them? And then to that question of free will, like, how are you guys both feeling about that? Because on the one hand, we have like, again, we talked about it at the opening, all the different relationships to that. Are you feeling that this is a rich and thematically potent way for us to look at what the impact on the characters is when they think they know the end point? Something we love. What does it do to a character if they hear a prophecy? Or are you feeling like if we pan back to us as viewers and also the show that they're making, where they're like, this is a story and this is this one part. The Dance of the Dragons, House of the Dragon is one part in a story and you know a crucial part of it. And so we can't forget that. And does that make this feel more hemmed in?
And I think it has, for me, it's a lot of what you want out of like franchise, maybe fantasy leaning IP storytelling. And I would rather have a world where there is not always going to be a throw the ring in Mount Doom or the White Walkers get defeated or...
Frankly, how Dare he?
No, I mean, like, I don't want to move past. I want to be able to move past points. You know what I mean? Like, I want them.
Yeah, you don't want to always be in prequel then.
I think the best version of a prequel that we've seen in recent years in television is Better Call Saul. And Better Call Saul, one of the things I love Better Call Saul as a Breaking Bad prequel is when you watch this character of Saul do this, that, or the other thing, or Jimmy if you prefer, you have the tragedy of Breaking Bad looming over it. And so to your point, Mal, I feel like I've always felt the tragedy of Game of Thrones, which is that there will be a world where there are no dragons. There will be a world where... I kind of
have to say, though, I do like it more when it's about flawed people than it is about people with no control. Like, that Jaime shoved Bran out because fate determined Bran needed to have this great injury. I almost like the idea of it, like, that there are no dragons in the show, which is kind of what Game of Thrones is more about.
I agree with both of you, which is why this is such an interesting question to me. And I think it's too soon to ultimately
kind of saying the same thing,
but
but we're using different examples, I think.
But I think that, like, I don't know. I don't think I believe in A Song of Ice and Fire or this world as a deterministic world.
Yeah.
Right. I think, like,
we're almost using House of the Dragon ideas about Game of Thrones.
Exactly. And that's why I'm interested to see how they navigate that now that these ideas have been introduced, because thinking about where we know this is heading and the long, spanning, swirling history of the Targaryen dynasty and the loss of magic and the rebirth of magic, etc., it's so thrilling to have this like front row seat for all of the characters along the way who did actually, despite whatever fate or destiny might say, did have a bearing on how we got there.
Well, you guys have been covering these shows for a really long time. Go ahead.
When Helaena says like it wouldn't change anything to Aemond, that makes me nervous.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
I really did not like that Helaena Aemond.
We had a question on a scale of 1 to 10. How much did Joe and Mal freak out over Helaena and Aemond's convo? I don't think they freaked out the way you think that they freaked out.
I did find it like very emotional to see Aemond in this completely broken space, because in the book, this idea is like, Septon Eustace tells us that the Kinslayer, which is what everyone's calling Aemond, was determined that this should be his victory alone. He had no wish to share the glory with his brothers nor any other man. And it's like presented in the histories as he wants to stand on his own, he wants to do it on his own, he wants all the credit. And to see like the truth of it, which is so much more heartbreaking, nobody would stand with him.
Yeah.
Like that part of it was, I thought, quite sad and quite affecting.
I mean, but no one will stand with him. But again, that was of his own making because he sent everyone away in the last couple episodes. And then he was like, oh no, I can't do this alone. And then it's too late, as it is with all these other things. I think this idea of it's too late hooks nicely into all this, because we're going to get that, of course, with Rhaenyra and Alicent.
And sin begets sin.
It's too late. It's too late. But I don't think that's the same to me as it's inevitable, which I agree with you is sort of what it sounds like when Helaena and Aemond have this discussion. And I didn't like this.
Yeah.
That makes me a little nervous.
I think that there's an element of watching these shows and maybe reading the books because they're not complete that really...
No, they're not.
It really plays to like the predictive side of reading or participating in fandom. Like where you're like, I want to say, these are all the signs that suggest this is going to happen, right?
Yes.
When you have characters in the story itself being like, this is gonna happen, it's a little bit different. Do you know what I mean? Because you don't want it to be like, I kind of want that to happen naturally, not because Helaena called it in advance.
Well, I think the end of Game of Thrones, the last few seasons were so interesting in terms of like a fandom phenomenon, because we had this book knowledge that could help us, but we didn't know genuinely where the story was going. Because George hadn't finished it, and like Weiss and Benioff were inventing some things at the same time. And so the speculative fervor around Game of Thrones, we're never going to have something like that for Fire and Blood, for House of the Dragon, because Fire and Blood is already written. And we also know like where things are landing with Game of Thrones.
Mushrooms version is the version, you know?
Exactly. There will be these things here and there that are a little different than how they're. So it's more like nuance and less like, is that Syria Farrell in the background? And you know, like all that sort of stuff.
Oh man, I loved a Syria theory.
Let's do Rhaenyra and Daemon.
This is one of the two, and the other is awesome. Like this is so good.
A lot of stuff happens in this episode with language. I find that like it's quite obvious that like Ulf, for instance, speaks differently than the Highborn people, and I thought No, not really.
No, yes, he does. But I was just telling Mallory I will not be doing any
I turned to you because I'm waiting for your
Cockney
impression.
war crimes today. No, I will not be
In this scene,
offending all.
It's a little bit different because they speak High Valyrian to each other.
Yeah.
But that's their intimacy language.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I thought that was cool. This was one of the better scenes of the series, probably.
Yes.
And
I would say anything.
I think you could have.
So good to have them back together.
Yes.
I think you could have ended the episode on this. Like, this was like, if
That
this had been
montage
the
slapped,
last
though.
scene of the episode,
And
I would
then
have
you
been
get the
like,
montage.
I love the montage. Sorry.
You love the montage? The montage is like, see you in 2 years when we move 4 feet ahead.
The montage
is what will sustain me for those 2 years.
This is essentially like the West Side Story, like
Oh man.
quintet.
I don't have any like major comment on this scene other than I thought Emma was incredible. Like when she needs to change what she's saying so that all the soldiers can hear. Like when she's like, and to
Yeah.
whom are you sworn?
Exactly.
Versus like whispering to him.
Yeah.
Versus talking to him in High Valyrian. It's really cool.
Nobody bending the knee when Rhaenyra walks into that room until Daemon does. The threat, the genuine and sincere threat that you feel to Rhaenyra's chances in that moment was like,
But also Cyrax perched above.
and even that didn't make them kneel. Even that didn't make them kneel.
I just think I think this was such an excellent scene. There were like 9 things going on at all times. To your point, the language used here was almost, I am meant to serve you until death or the end of our story, essentially like a wedding vow. Like, they're just like, redoing their vows in front of this group of Riverlanders.
And where are they doing it? They're doing it in the room again where
Yeah.
Viserys was chosen at the Great Council. Like where the decision that set all of this into motion was made. There is no more fitting place. Now, I would argue like maybe not even in front of the Iron Throne for this conversation between them to unfold. And like that, I love that moment so much when Rhaenyra's like, you sound like my dad, because
Yeah.
as we've talked about a lot, Daemon's response to Rhaenyra bringing up the prophecy in the season 1 finale was like, my brother was a slave to his omens and portents. Like dreams didn't make us kings, dragons did. And now we see not only this new connection to Rhaenyra, but to Viserys.
Yeah.
And he actually has not just clarity and cohesion now with Rhaenyra, but something that she doesn't. She has inherited this story, but he has seen it directly. And so like that is just a fascinating
got
dynamic
screamers.
too. He got screamers, man. We're
He doesn't have
and
to watch the
all.
leaks. He knows what he's doing. No, and I love that like Rhaenyra, this is exactly what Rhaenyra asked for at the beginning of the season that he could not give her.
Yeah.
Right?
Do you accept me as your queen and ruler?
And like for him to do it in front of all those people.
Incredible.
And like we said a little earlier in the season that we were a little uncomfortable with this idea of Daemon being having like ideas of taking the throne for himself and stuff like that. And we were suspicious that it was the middle arc of something that would end on something like this. I still don't think they needed to go quite as hard as they did earlier this season, but this was extremely
Feels earned.
satisfying.
I love too the pulling of the hand, you know, and that threat from Rhaenyra, like, don't pull this again, right?
But
and he's like,
also-
I couldn't.
He's like, I tried.
cannot,
Yeah,
try.
And that felt like a real Matt Smith acting decision for him to be like, to play it as like a joke.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just thought that was so good. Also, just one quick thing before we roll on from Harrenhal. When we watch Cyrax, this is just a thing they do sometimes that is really fun. When Cyrax and Sea Smoke are flying over the God's Eye past the camera shakes. And that's just like a digital like these dragons are fucking powerful thing that they do is so cool.
We're running a little long, so I'm just
Yes.
gonna condense some
Finale,
stuff
man.
here. We had 2 scenes.
Mallory has like 2 more bottles of water, so we could be here.
Trying to
all
avoid
evening.
another.
At a certain point, she will need to pee and the episode will end. But Alan and Corrales on the docks together.
Yeah.
What felt like a little bit of a letdown scene after the highs of Rhaenyra and Daemon when it first began. Because I was like, oh, yet another scene of these 2 guys not being able to express themselves and being like, yes, I will go get your boat ready, you know? And then actually it turns into a performance review of like, hey, your guys, they could use like a little bit more relatable content. And Alan's like, fuck you, man. Yeah. And they have this huge explosion on the dock for, you know, in terms of Valyrian explosions, yeah. And I thought it was a cool scene. Yeah. It's another scene where small folk and nobles clash in this episode. You know, like you have like these moments where like these lower born people are like, you know what, man, honestly enough, you know? And I thought You kind of get that a little bit with Criston and Gwaine. You certainly get it with Ulf and everybody. And you get it here with Alan, who's just like, I'm tired of you not like kind of honoring what you know you did here, which is father me.
Right, and you think you're conferring honor on me when I know I've literally like Laenor died and Lena died and then like, you know, Luke died and now you know who I am.
Yeah.
Bela rejected you and now you remember me.
I thought like, cause we were talking earlier about the growth from Corrales with the renaming of the sea snake and like, weights and counterweights, like Alan saying to him, like, you don't just get to like live life completely on your terms, you know, felt very important.
It was great. And like, I agree with you. Alan has been a bit like, it's similar to Adam, is like a bit sort of like a cipher all season. They had these 2 notes that they were playing all season and we were like, we get it. But as soon as Adam gets claimed by Sea Smoke, I'm like all in on this character. And once Alan did this, I was like, yes, I want more.
We get a quick scene of Mysaria and Rhaenyra.
Another scene of Rhaena wandering.
Oh yeah, Rhaena's still out there. She's doing.
Meanwhile,
and
out in the mail.
she could really use an REI or something. And then Mysaria and Rhaenyra are chatting. This seems to be. She gets back with Daemon. She fully is now turning the page to. It looks like I have to go on the front foot. It looks like I have to be the aggressor. It looks like this can't just be for deterrence. And Mysaria is saying what? She is saying, the gods have chosen you. So if whatever you choose must be divine will, you know? So
Of all the players
Dangerous.
playing people, Mysaria feels like she's,
now we get a scene, the last sort of dramatic scene before this montage is what I wonder whether will be somewhat controversial with the fandom, which is the second Rhaenyra and Alicent scene. Wonderfully acted by the performers.
Yeah.
Certainly interesting as a mirror or inversion of Rhaenyra coming to Alicent in the beginning, towards the beginning of the season, and being like, you know, let's try to figure out a different way of handling this. And Alicent saying, too late. Now Rhaenyra is saying it's too late.
Yes.
You get the great moment with Olivia Cook biting her nails.
Yes.
All this stuff. I just wonder whether or not people will sort of be like, you guys can't keep doing this. This wouldn't have been able to happen.
I mean, they were already saying that, so I think we just have to sort of like put that. People felt that so much about the first time that of course, that will happen again. How did
this is just these are not written about in the books. We do not.
Right. How did Alicent get there? Orwell.
Shout out Orwell.
Secret tunnel somewhere. Good job.
You want to go see Rhaenyra?
The emotional
the
payoff.
person you're at war with? I got you.
No props. The emotional payoff of Alicent saying, come away with me, wearing Robin's Egg blue that she wore in season 1, episode 1. In that episode, Rhaenyra says, I want to fly with you on Dragonback, see the great wonders across the narrow sea, and eat only cake.
Never just about cake.
And like in that scene, Alicent is very much like, you don't care if your dad is a son. You don't want the throne. You don't want like, what about your duty? What about like all this sort of stuff? Like this constant duty versus love, you know, binary that we've been talking about all season on House of R for sure. And this way in which their circumstances have flipped. I really love that Alicent here was talking about sort of her revelation in Big Bathtub that she had last week. That helped clarify that for me. It was really helpful.
Big Bathtub season.
But like, and just
for Mal listens to the watch, so it's like,
Sure, that's me time. That's me time. Yeah.
The Helaman shippers might not be having a very good episode, but the
Alicent Rhaenyra
the Alicent Rhaenyra shippers are having
definitely had a good time. A vibe.
She invites her to run away with her.
The one thing I thought might be controversial now is the idea that Alicent is essentially like, I'll leave the back door unlocked if you want to take.
Not only that,
but you can have
kill
Aegon's head. I mean, this was huge. Like, first of all, I loved the way that they leaned into, again, like that meta aspect of how we talk about the story that we read and the way the show is adapted. History will paint you a villain, a cold queen grasping for power and then defeated. That is true. That is how you didn't like this. Two on the nose.
Two on the nose for me.
It's the show kind of exploring this idea of like what its mission is. I'm compelled by, right? Like we are, to your point, seeing things that to some viewers may like defy credulity. Like, can they keep having these secret meetings? But like then they almost, I think, like they lend credence to the possibility by reminding us that the histories won't know and don't remember it that way. So I was like interested in that idea. And then the way that like duty and sacrifice has come up between them so many times, it's this recurring idea. I loved and thought it was so satisfying when Rhaenyra was like, you're the one who made virtue your banner.
Exactly.
Incredible moment.
Yeah, for Alicent to be like,
Incredible
don't
moment.
judge me for fucking Criston Cole when you fucked Criston Cole. And Rhaenyra's like, yeah, but I'm not the one who was like, it's a mortal sin.
Yeah, it was incredible. And then talk about, because that builds on, of course, their history with each other. You mentioned the dress, that beautiful like opening series note. The Aegon moment, Rhaenyra is 100% right when she says to Alicent, you still think you can have everything you want, and there's no way for you to go live your life and for us to make this arrangement. You're just gonna let me in and the throne will be mine if Aegon lives. No fucking way. And we've been hearing it the entire series.
From Otto.
From Otto, right when he, in the 5th episode, when he said to Alicent, like, you're no fool, and yet you choose not to see it. The time is coming, Alicent. Either you prepare Aegon to rule, or you cleave to Rhaenyra and pray for her mercy. This was it. Praying for her mercy.
This is me word searching cleave in my notes because I was like, it's the Otto moment.
What have we heard Rhaenyra say all season? I hope they don't mistake mercy with weakness.
Yeah.
I hope they don't mistake mercy with pliancy. And like, Alicent looked at Aegon when he was just wanted to like fucking wank out the window and was like, you are the challenge just by living and just by breathing. And Rhaenyra knows that that's true. But it doesn't matter what the facts are in the reality. For Alicent to nod and agree. We talked about this literally last week.
Yeah.
No matter what, no matter how fraught the relationships were, she stood in front of Aegon and blocked him from harm at the Dragon Pit. She stood in front of Helaena at the riot. She was always going to save her kids no matter what. This is a huge moment.
It's a huge moment. She's like, well, I've got that backup kid, Darren. I hear he's pretty nice.
He's kind.
I think I can get the bug one to come with me, maybe.
Oh, man.
Aemond is burning villages left and right.
Someone has
and
given up on
center.
Aemond, yeah.
And I asked Orwell, will Aegon really have any kind of quality of life if he ever recovers from this? I heard his penis got split open like a sausage. So maybe it's like time to pack it up. But I think that like, I think in all seriousness, Emma's performance
Remarkable.
of Rhaenyra waiting to see what Alicent will do in that moment.
Master negotiator.
Master negotiator, but like the way that I think Emma is just so extraordinary, and the way that just a million different emotions play across their face there, like, and where it's just sort of like I have to steel myself and ask for this, but also empathy for.
You don't want to do that to the person you love. You don't want to say a son for a son.
I really liked it that she repeats multiple times, like, why did you come? Because it's trying to get to the actual pure motivation. Is it purely for you to get out of this life?
Right.
Or is it because you really want to save thousands of lives? I really was only bringing this up as a controversial idea because betrayal in these stories is a huge scarlet letter that like Jaime carries around for the entire show of Game of Thrones is you're the Kingslayer. Like,
well, it's like, remember what Varys said to Ned when Ned was like, who do you serve? The realm, someone must. That's always one of the things we love talking about. Like, how many characters could really claim that that was true? That they actually cared about the good of the realm? How many of them just tell themselves they care about the good of the realm to further whatever their agenda or their ends might be? So if you've lived your life talking about duty and sacrifice and you really believe that giving Rhaenyra the throne is the right thing, that it will lead to peace, and that's the sacrifice you have to make, then everything you've ever said you believe
and they just can't
is
go
on
out
the
and just
line.
be like, go public, the two of us, like, I fucked up. Like, the vision that my husband told me about was not
You are the challenge just by living and by breathing.
It's too late.
Okay, so
Cindy gets synchronous.
I think one of the most important sort of grace notes on this scene, because then we get the montage of like all the armies marching.
Tessarian.
We get the blue belly of Darren's dragon Tessarian.
The copper wings.
That all happens, but the final shots are Rhaenyra framed by all this lattice work, like she's caged in.
The history.
And
where she found the seeds, right?
Exactly, but like she's all caged in, and Alicent is in front of a wide open horizon. And all season, we've been watching Rhaenyra in front of a wide open horizon, and Alicent caged in, caged in.
Did she make a window
So
in the wall of her prison?
Exactly. No, she like busted. No, she didn't
Busted
even.
out
She's
completely.
been looking out of the window, and now she
Shawshank
is.
time.
She took one big bath.
Yeah.
That's all it took, and now she's like the whole world.
man.
So like Alicent. I don't know what's going to happen for this character going forward. I do in some sense, but I don't in another because the portrayal is so different in the version of the book. But I think I believe her when she's like, I found a way back to myself.
Sure.
Like, and no matter what miseries are to come, for Alicent, I think there will be just solace in the fact that like she's located, I think, actual morality, which is an odd thing for me to say in a scene where she was like, okay, you can kill my son. But like, I think that idea of like, no, this is me. I have been play acting ever since my dad told me to dress up in my dead mother's dress and go talk to the king. I have been play acting a role.
Right.
And now I am finally back to season 1, episode 1.
To be fair, not a great son though. You know what I mean? Like it's not like it was like Helaena.
Everyone
One
wants
of her
to do
lesser
something
ones.
great and be remembered. And Alicent literally says, I want to die unremarked and unnoticed and be free. And like to stare out into that open air and that water. I also love that framing of that Rhaenyra shot because she's like, it's very much of a piece with this question and theme of the episode. Like you are a part of that history.
Right, so small.
That story.
They're
all
both
around
framed
you.
so tiny in those shots, and also just what decision has Rhaenyra made in this episode? Because early in the episode, she's out on her balcony with Miss Arya, like getting her wide vista shots that she usually gets. What decision has she made in this episode that has put her in that tiny little box? You know, and I think that's something for us all to think about.
It's all, that's,
Was it smaller than the box Otto was in?
let's talk about Otto. In this montage, we get a bunch of stuff. Aegon and Larys escape.
Yes.
Otto is in a box.
He's in prison. He is in a cell.
Okay, we don't know anything
someone's
about this.
Isn't it moving though?
It seems like he's
swaying?
moving.
I think he's on a boat, so
A brig?
Triarchy,
So a brig?
or in a carriage of some kind.
The Triarchy wouldn't have told Tylan, by the way, we got your guy. Okay. Tylan
I
and
mean,
his
I
fleet
would've.
are approaching the gullet, which is the sort of barricade, the blockade that they've got, right? His twin, Jason,
Yep.
he has a twin.
Moving toward that red fork.
Is
Yeah.
approaching the Riverlands from the west. This is all Joe, by the way. I did not know what was going on. Approaching the Riverlands from the west of the continent. Darren, we have not met yet.
Wow.
He has
saw
not been cast
Tessarion
yet. But
thrilling.
Tessarion, the blue dragon, rides
queen.
over the green army. This is not Criston and Gwyn.
Right.
This is the High Towers
Yes.
from the south marching.
So if
We've been hearing
okay,
about him all season.
If this,
Ormond Hightower's
we're gonna do
forces.
fun video only, but also just kind of open air mapping right now. If this is King's Landing and this is the Riverlands, right? These are
This is like
two
Steve Konrakian.
two like yeah. Give me my big board and some khakis. If this is King's Landing and this is the Riverlands, Tylan's coming this way.
Yeah.
Tessarion and Darren are coming up from here. Jason and the Lannisters are coming from here. The Starks are coming down the Twins.
Winter
River here.
Wolves.
Yeah, the Starks are
those
coming down
greybeards.
into the Riverlands.
Yeah.
And what is so interesting about a lot of that is
That we will have to wait 2 years to see.
that's one part of it. And also shout out Ramin Djawadi in the score where he would just like
Score was
introduce
incredible.
various house themes into like what was happening here. But as everyone's assembling, as we see Sheep Stealer, not just Tessarion, but we see Sheep Stealer, a really cool, like rattling,
Amazing.
and creepy
Muddy.
dragon.
That's Rhaena's dragon.
That's
Wow.
Rhaena's dragon.
Well, it's the dragon that Rhaena is pursuing. Yeah.
Is he eating a sheep at the end there?
There are stealing a sheep. There are elements on the board
all
that
right there
people
in the
are
name.
aware of, and there are elements they're not aware of.
Okay.
So again, we'll talk about this in 2 years' time. But like,
See you guys in 26.
No, well, I will see both of you next year for fucking Dunkin' Egg.
yes,
Well, they had a Night of the Seven
Don't you
Kingdoms
leave me
footage
waiting.
tonight. It's on HBO's
know.
YouTube and everything.
we both shrieked
And
about
not-
it. No, but like, I just want to say really quickly, and then we're done. Maybe is that like. Daemon thinks he's like amassed this huge Riverland army. He's like, I get it. I know what's happening, all this other stuff like that. They don't know Tylan's coming with the Triarchy. They don't know that's happening. And then Jason Lannister's like, I'm gonna kill these Riverlanders. They don't know the Starks are coming.
Yeah.
They don't know the Winter Wolves are on their way. And so like there are these pieces on the board that are moving around, but no one except for maybe Larys has a full
And he's not telling anyone.
Maybe
shape of the
Helaena.
board.
Yeah,
Helena's
right.
probably
Yeah,
seen it.
Helena's definitely seen it.
I'm
Yeah.
on season 7 of Game of
Yeah,
Thrones. guys.
exactly.
Let's ask. I have a couple questions from YouTube commenters. One is I asked already, which was who is the dragon at the
It's
end?
a sheep stealer.
Sheep stealer.
One of the wild dragons of Dragonstone, who we heard Lady Jane explain had
That's the
to
wild free agent.
venture up to the Vale for
Sounded
more sheep.
So cool.
It sounded great.
Yeah.
David also asked here, who is your MVP for season 2?
Character or performer?
I'm going to tweak this question a little bit.
Okay.
Who is the character that improved the most in your standing? Like
You just want us to talk about
wanna say
Criston?
Criston Cole?
You're shameless. We already talked about Criston.
I already stared down the camera.
who is the
That was
character
naked,
who just is
Chris.
the coolest? No, I don't know. Who's your MVP for the season? Who's your favorite character of the season?
I think the scenes that I enjoyed the most were the ones between Larys and Aegon. Genuinely.
Okay.
Welcome to Team Larys.
Genuinely. I loved them. And every Gawain scene.
Yes.
I loved the Gawain scenes.
Fine.
But
I'll
I
say-
remain Team Black despite picking 2 Team Green character sets.
You know
Good
where the
answer.
fun is. You know where the party's at.
I'll represent Team Black, and I'll say, and I said at the beginning of the season, Simon Strong and Ulf the White. We needed that levity.
was
We
great.
needed Simon clapping with glee in the background as Damon's
was
screaming to war, and everyone's roaring behind him, and Alfred Broom's like, I gotta go.
Yeah.
So Simon and Ulf, but like really, it's Emma Darcy as Rhaenyra.
Yeah, I mean,
you know?
it's like
Fantastic. They're all great.
Rhaenyra's like the character Rhaenyra is like the one who I think is kind of like stepped into the maybe like this show needed a main character void. Criston and Gawain are my guys. It's just every
know.
scene. Yeah.
We know, buddy.
Thank you so much for doing this season with
my
us.
God.
Don't leave us.
Well, you guys have like 5.5 hours of podcasting to do this week anyway, right?
This is our fun farewell.
Our swan song.
Chris.
Thanks so much for watching us on YouTube. Thanks for
Thanks to
listening
like all
to
the
us.
people who helped.
Yeah, thank
make
you to our
this.
incredible
Yeah,
Talk the
huge
Thrones crew.
Team. Thank you.
Every week we got to do this. This was a real pleasure. Hopefully we'll be here for Night of the Seven Kingdoms,
I'll be here.
House of the Dragon season 3.
Just Mallory.
You know, Blade
can't wait.
Runner 2099. We'll see.
all right.
Sign me
Thanks
up.
to everybody for watching on the Ringerverse YouTube and listening on House of R and watching on House of R. We'll see you soon.